Hello, good people. I am so happy to have you today for the second part of our conversation about how to improve your communication skills. And we said that today we were going to particularly dwell on how to use communication to transform your relationships, how to have a good conversation and transform your relationship. So you're all welcome, and those who would watch the replay, today we are talking about part two of how to improve your communication skills, and particularly how to have a good conversation and transform your relationship. In part one, if you have not watched part one of this series in communication skills, you really have to watch the video. It's down in the description below, where we really give an in-depth of basic skills that you could use for effective communication. And I said basic skills because those are the really foundations of how to have an effective communication experience, and or how to communicate effectively. And since communication is such a big central part of life, relationships, transactions, of everything, I decided to do these live streams in two parts. The first part was general communication skills. And then I thought that since relationships, either be they family relationships, at work with colleagues, or in everyday interaction, relationships are the central part of our human existence. And so I thought it was necessary to do one particular live stream just on how to have a good conversation that would transform your relationships. And so here we are today. Most of often, communication is seen as the basic life skill and the most important life skill because we use it in everything we do. And that's why it is so important to be intentional the way we communicate, and also to learn how to communicate effectively. Everybody learns things. We are not born with all the things we know, but we can be selective in the things we learn because we are focused on using our knowledge for our own improvement. And in that way, we also improve our families and the environment where we live in. And so today, I will really be glad to share my thoughts on how to have a good conversation and transform your relationship. We've all heard that communication is the brain child of every relationship. And so good communication makes good relationships, which also means if you do not communicate or you don't communicate well, you can spoil your relationships just because you did not communicate. Hi, Yaya. Blessings, and you are welcome. I'm glad to have you here in today's live show where we are talking about how to improve your communication skills. The first part of this live stream was on Monday. We had a good conversation on how to improve your general communication skills to become a successful communicator and an effective communicator. If you have time, you can watch the other video, the first video, the part one video. The link is in the description below. I decided to dedicate this part two specifically to relationships because communication is key to everything. Okay, you're welcome. Thank you so much. And for all those who watch the replay, you can watch part one of the discussion, and then that will help you to blend part two. Coming to think about part two, I read somewhere and I will read it for you. They say a little communication goes such a long way. If you are busy, say it. If you are upset, express it. If you are running late, let people know. If you don't want to do something, be straightforward. If you are unsure, ask. It is so simple, but it is so important. When I got this quotation, and it's a quotation from a positive mindset, and I was like, this is a summary of how we should treat communication, because communication or the lack of communication can lead to us losing so many things, or for us getting into unnecessary problems or unnecessary hitches with people, just because we did not communicate. And just because, in the first part, we talked about the importance of being concise and organizing our thoughts, and the importance of expressing what we feel, expressing our feelings. And so when I read this quotation, for me, it was like a total summary of everything that we will be talking about today. And so, to have an effective communication or healing communication, to transform your relationships, be they relationships in your family, with your family members, be they relationships with your spouse, be they relationships at your workplace, any relationship for that matter, communication is key, but also the way you communicate. And that is why we insist on you improving your communication skills. And so, experts propose some empowering questions that facilitate dialogue, because experts say communication is a dialogue. It's not like a one person talking. When it's like, if you go to church and the priest or the pastor is talking, is preaching, that is him talking and preaching the gospel. That is something different. But communication is always two ways, and that is why they call it a dialogue, because it involves the person who is speaking and the person who is listening. And we also insisted on the importance of active listening in our first part of the discussion on communication. And today, that part of listening is also so capital in relationships, because most often when we listen and understand what the other person is communicating, or what the other person is really saying, it really helps us to solve unnecessary problems, or to breach some unnecessary gaps that would not be there if we communicated effectively, if we communicated clearly, if we communicated in a concise and organized way. And so that is why experts have proposed some what they call empowering questions in a conversation to mend relationships, because relationships is building. We build relationships. It's not like something that we just get into a relationship once and no. When we get in excuse me, when we get into a relationship, we have to build it. And building means sometimes there will be breaks, there will be breakages, and we need to mend them. And that is where these empowering questions come in. And experts propose three empowering questions to facilitate dialogue in any relationship. The first question you will ask is, what is it that I can do to move us out of this situation? Remember, we are in the situation of conflict, or we are in a situation where things are not really moving, or we are challenged by a problem or something. So the communication in this case, remember, we are talking about how to mend your relationships through communication. Hi, Daphne, you are so welcome. I am happy to have you here. I hope you're doing fine. And thank you for coming to this live stream where we are talking about how to improve your communication skills. And especially, we want to talk today about how to use communication to transform your relationships. How to have a good conversation to and transform your relationship, because life is all about relationships, and in every relationships we are building each other, be they relationships in your family, in your workplace, with your spouse. Every relationship is based on building together, and that is why when we are building, sometimes we have cracks, sometimes we have challenges. And when we have challenges, communication is the medicine, like the medicine to help us to build this, to build back, or to heal, or to mend. And that is why we need some specific skills to communicate effectively and to communicate to men. And so experts, like they say, one of the main questions that you ask at such moments is, what is it that I can do to move us from this situation? You remember, when you say, what is it that I can do, it means you are opening a dialogue. You are not just imposing what you want to do. You are asking the other person involved, because you want to mend and you want to transform your relationship from maybe a stalemate to something more buoyant and something more interesting. So experts propose the second question: where can we focus on to help us avoid ever being here again? Now you are using the lessons from the problem to build back better. And when you ask the question, where can we focus? It means you want to focus on what is important. You want to focus on what is going to mend. You want to focus on what is going to build. You want to focus on what is going to heal. And so it's not, you are not in a dictatorship, you are in a dialogue, and you are asking. Hi, my daughter, you are welcome to today's topic: how to improve your communication skills, and especially how to use communication to transform your relationships. Hi, Goodness Diary, you're so welcome. I thank you all for coming. Hey, Rosemary, you're welcome. Thank you so much. I thank you all for coming. I thank you all for being here. You could have been doing something else, but you choose to come and grace this live stream. I'm so happy and I appreciate you all. Today, we are talking about how to have a good conversation and transform your relationships. And we started by saying, started by sharing a quote that I read somewhere, which which inspired me to have this separate live stream about healing your relationships through communications. Hi, Rose, you are welcome. And I'm going to read it again to you, and you would see what I really like. It's a summary of all we are going to talk about today. They say, a little communication goes such a long way. If you are busy, say it. If you are upset, express it. If you are running late, let people know. If you don't want to do something, be straightforward. And if you are unsure, ask. And they say it's so simple, but so important. So when I read this, okay, you, we are going to catch up. We always catch up with each other. Thank you for the share and thank you for everything. I know that we are in such busy streets. Thank you for taking out time to come and show your support, even if you are busy. Hi, Ben. How are you today? I am blessed to have you. And I was going to ask you, why aren't you doing contents again? Because I see your videos date from a little while. And so we would like to see a lot more of things in Brazil. And we would like you to really share us with some of the fun you're having there and how, what you're learning and how the culture change is really impacting your life. And so we were saying, I was sharing what I read about how to have a good conversation and transform your relationship. And experts say when we are committed in a relationship, be it in a relationship with your family, with your spouse, with your colleagues, any type of relationship, learn how to ask empowering questions. They call them empowering questions because they are questions that will open you up for dialogue. Because what happens is we are working on dialogue. Communication is a dialogue. It's not like you just coming to give instructions to somebody or to tell them what you want to tell them and you say, okay, you stop it. No, it's a dialogue. And that is why experts propose these empowering questions so that they will facilitate and open up for dialogue. And that is why they say, hi, Mountain of Inspiration, thank you so much for coming. I am so blessed to have you here. Yes, Ben. Ben said, yes, I should. I always put stuff on Instagram and Snapchat, not really YouTube. Okay, some of us would really like to see a lot about Brazil in YouTube because that is what really stays. We can come there every time and we'll see it. It's raining in Brazil and everyone is wearing jackets, but I know what you're talking about because the difference between the cold in Brazil and the cold in Scotland, it's a real like night and day. So I really know what you're doing, what you're saying. Thank you for the share Lily's platform. Thank you so much. Oh my God, I'm really laughing because when you think about the what we call the cold here, like today is snowing out here in Calgary, and it's not like a joke because everyone who is going out with their snow pants. I remember one time when I was in Senegal, I was communication and networking officer for my NGO, and we have offices all worldwide. And so we were hosting an international workshop because we always had international sessions every year. And I was communicating to everyone around there. And it was during the in Senegal, we would call 23 degrees Celsius. We said it was a cold period because normally we go up to sometimes 45 degrees. So I was sending the messages and I told them, hey, come with your jackets because it's going to be cold here and we are going to be between 23 and 27 degrees Celsius. And one of my colleagues who was coming from Canada, I said, what do you what kind of degrees are you measuring? Because when you tell me that 23 degrees Celsius is cold weather, then I really don't know what kind of jacket. So Ben, that is really I relate with what you're saying. I just brought this little story to tell you that it happens most of the time when we travel to new places. We the weather there is like, okay, these people are complaining about this kind of cold. Let them come to Scotland and then they will know what cold is and when to wear jackets. So I just like that was a little story to tell you that I experienced that, and like everyone was really, this can't be, you can't be telling me it's going to be very cold when the weather is going to be, because we are going to be melting. And so those things happen. So coming back to our ways of using communication to transform our relationships. And so thank you for everyone in the chat, and thank you for all the shares and all the thumbs up. I'm really grateful for everybody who is here, and even for all of you who are going to watch the replay. I am so grateful for your time, for your support, and for your encouragement. So I was sharing that the experts have proposed like several questions that they considered as empowering questions. And they call them empowering questions because those are questions that facilitate dialogue. Because when you are in communication, you are in a dialogue. You're not talking to yourself. It's not like you a preacher in church who is just preaching and people are listening. No, in a communication, it's two ways. It's a dialogue between the person who is talking and the person who is listening. And so if you, since it's a relationship and you want it to be a win-win and you want it to be profitable for everyone, experts have proposed many questions that you can use, because we are talking about transforming a relationship, which means there is a break somewhere and we are trying to mend it. And so in mending, we are focused on asking questions that will encourage dialogue. And that is why they say the first question is, what is it that I can do to move us out of this situation? This means you are taking responsibility for your own part of the things that you have to do to bring dialogue and to move you forward. And then the second empowering question is, where can we focus to help us avoid ever being here again? So it's about we. You see, you are talking about we. It's not that I did this, I am right, I was supposed to. No, it's a dialogue, and you want everybody to feel listened to feel heard, and you want the other person to feel that you are working on building and not on further destroying or on further bringing more challenges. And so the third empowering question that they want you to ask is, what lesson would you like us to get from this experience? Remember, we said in every challenge, in every mistake, in every failure, we look for the lessons. It is never a failure. Either we win or we learn. So it's two things that happens when you fail at something or when you are challenged with something. When you do something and you don't get the outcome that you wanted to get, you 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 learn. So when you're doing something, any action that you take, there are two outcomes: you learn or you win. And most of the time, we don't win at the first go. And so we have to do it over and over. And what happens? We use the lessons to build back better. And so at every time, every situation in a relationship, be it what type of relationship. Hi, Ed Variety, you are so welcome, sis. Thank you for being here. And thank you for the thumbs up. Thank you for all the support. Thank you to everybody in the chat and even the people who are going to watch the replay. I thank you for coming. And so we are focusing on we, not on me. I am right, I did this thing, or something. Because why did the experts bring out these empowering questions, which they consider questions that facilitate dialogue? What is it that I can do on my part to move us out of this situation? Which means you are also telling the person whom you are talking to that there is something they too have to do on their own part. So it's working together because you are building and growing together. So it's not me or you, it's us. And then that's why they say the second question you should be asking is, where can we focus to help us out of it? So you don't want to start to keep having the same challenges over and over. You want to learn from your mistakes and to grow from there. Hi, cousin. You are so welcome. Thank you so much for coming. I hope you're doing well this morning. We are talking about how to improve your communication skills part two. And we are focusing today on how to have a good conversation and transform your relationship. So we are talking about communication in relationships, and be they relationships with your family members, with your spouse, with your colleagues, or even just going out. You have the responsibility of building good communication skills to have effective communication so people can listen to you, so you can be a people can think that you are, or you can position yourself like an agreeable person who knows how to talk, who knows how to listen to people, who knows how to bring harmony. And that is why experts propose that in relationships, we have to ask empowering questions. And they call empowering questions like those questions that facilitate dialogue. And they say you have to ask, what can I do to move us forward? Because that shows you are willing to solve the situation. And then the second thing, what can we do? What can we focus on? Because you think it is a dialogue and it is two people. The listener, hey, my dear friend, you are so welcome. I am glad to have you here today. I hope you are completely recovered. And I thank you for coming and catching up on this live stream where we are talking about how to improve your communication skills. This is part two. We had a part one that we really just talked about communication as building the best life skill that will help you in your relationships or in your profession. But today, since communication is such an important and integral part of our livelihood, I decided, or I thought it necessary to bring a specific aspect of it on how to have a good conversation and transform your relationship. I'm happy to know that you are doing better, and so thank you for really not just staying at home and decide to be active. When you are more active, you get well faster. Hi, my sister, the everyday life of an OCD's chick. I am really so happy and blessed to have you all here, where we are talking about how to use communication to transform your relationships. And we are saying that if you are committed in a relationship, we have to communicate at all costs. And I will tell you more especially that I was inspired from this by this quote, which I really want to read it out to you for those who are coming now. They say a little communication goes such a long way. If you are busy, say it. If you are upset, express it. If you are running late, let people know. If you don't want to do something, be straightforward. And if you are unsure, ask. It is that simple, but it is so important. And so when I read this, I said, wow, this is really a summary of what I would really want to talk about today, because most often in relationships, be they with our family members, with our spouses, at the workplace. Just the fact that we don't communicate well can bring some unnecessary problems. And that is why I really wanted to share this as a part two. I didn't want to leave it like only one day about communication. Communication is something we can talk about forever, but we have to find specific things about communication which will really help us in our daily lives, because communication is at the center of everything we do. And why did the experts bring these empowering questions, which they say are questions that open up for dialogue? Because they found out that when you are in an argument, or you have a problem to solve, or you are in a communication, don't make the other person feel like they don't know anything. Okay, sis, you're so welcome. You're welcome. So don't you have to communicate in such a way that everybody feels empowered and everybody feels better about it. And that's why the experts will tell us to avoid like questions like, what did I do wrong? Why is this happening to me? Or why don't you love me anymore with your spouse? Or you say, why did you treat me that way? Because experts say that every why question means you are asking for proof. Hi, Marlene, you are welcome. I'm happy to have you here, and thank you for coming. So, experts say when you ask why questions, you are asking for proof. And sometimes you do not even want to know the answer. Because when you say, what did I do wrong? Or why is it happening to me? Why did you treat me this way? You want proof. Meanwhile, sometimes that is not. Hi, Laquita and Corey, I'm happy that you finished your life. Whitey is such a busy street going from one place to another. Thank you so much for always being there and for enjoying the comment and for everything you do. I'm going to come back to find to I can't stop listening about storytelling, because that is the foundation of every learning, and we have to really tell stories, because that is the easiest way people learn. And so today, you remember during the first part of this conversation on how to improve your communication skills, I was really blessed with the presence of Laquita on the panel, and she discussed such really fundamental issues about communication. The link is below this video, and I also put the link to Laquita's YouTube channel under this video. Blind guy, his wife, they are a I call them my excellent dynamic duo. They have the superpower that we all have to copy about communication skills, because they have such a blend, and they have mastered it so well. They use it to communicate so effectively that we need to all learn. Please watch the video, the part one of this series on how to improve your communication, and you would really have your time. You have your worth of any time that you spend there. And so, since that conversation was so juicy with such golden nuggets, I thought that if we had one conversation today specifically just on how to have a good conversation and transform your relationship, it will be more useful, because communication is the center of everything. And if you have any committed relationship, you have to develop your communication skills, because the communication skills, we learn them like we learn every other thing. And so it's not something reserved for a few people or for a kind of people. If you want to communicate effectively, you can learn it, and it is not difficult. They are just little things that you can put in your communication and make it more effective and make it more essential and save yourself a lot of things. Hi, Rambo. You are so welcome. Thank you very much for coming. Yes, work on communication. That is a real. That's when those are that they call it one of the most important life skills because we need it in everything we do. Like the experts will say, life is a transaction. And what is a transaction? When you are doing a transaction, you want to convince the other person, and you are not going to convince the other person by forcing your ideas on them. You are convincing them by communicating in such a way that you convince them with facts, you convince them with what you're saying, and you want to convince people with facts. And there is a way you can do that by enhancing and improving your communication skills. And today in particular, we are talking about using empowering questions that facilitate dialogue. Because most often, experts say that when you use why questions, you are asking for proof. And sometimes you really don't want to hear the answer. Meanwhile, if you ask open ended questions that will bring dialogue, you can be able to talk. People will bring their own opinion, people will bring their ideas, and you will have a very effective communication. You will solve your problem, giving everybody a win-win situation, and like they say, keeping everybody's dignity intact. So in a communication, because it is a dialogue between the person who is talking and the person who is listening, you want to keep everybody's dignity intact. It's not like you imposing on somebody or you dictating to somebody or you trying to crush it down their throats. No, you are in a dialogue where you want to listen to the other person's opinion and you want to talk about it and bring a common solution because you are growing together. So it is something you're doing together. It is not something you're doing on your own. It is a communication, it is a dialogue. And that is why those empowering questions are so important. And what are the empowering questions? You ask, what is it that I can do to move us out of this situation? Where can we focus to help us avoid ever being here again? Or what lessons would you like us to get from this experience? So each time you are looking for lessons, it is so important because you are telling yourself that yes, I can make mistakes, but yes, I can also learn from the mistakes. And so that will help me to not commit the same mistakes over and over, especially in a relationship. When you are doing something that your spouse or your family members or your colleagues, sometimes you have some behavioral traits that you don't know that is hurting people. And then you you just you are doing them and then they call your attention to it. Be willing to listen. Be always willing to listen and learn. When you listen, you learn a lot. We talked a lot about listening in the first part of the skills that you need to communicate effectively, and that video is in the description link below. Be willing to listen, especially in relationships, because when you listen, you exactly get what the other person is saying, and you find a solution that is workable for two of you. It is a dialogue, it is a negotiation. It is you are in a dialogue where people are giving their own ideas and you listen to them, and sometimes be willing to agree to disagree. Sometimes we think that our own points of view are the best, and without listening to the other person. And so sometimes we assume things that are not helpful. And that is why they say communication is important. That's why they say always dialogue. It's not only communicating, but you have to have the skills to dialogue in such a way that everybody's dignity will be left intact. You have to dialogue in such a way that everybody will participate. Yeah, you're so welcome. I really love your cooking. You have some amazing recipes, and I copy some of them. I copy some of them, and they are yummy and very healthy. So thanks you for doing what you're doing. Concentrate on the cooking, like they say. When you don't concentrate in the cooking, you can have maybe too much salt or too much pepper. No, I know you're a good cook. So hi Adams, you are so welcome. I'm always blessed to have you. I thank you for your support. I thank you for your encouragement. I thank you for always being there. And so, the importance of communication, even when you're talking to your kids, to your parents, to your spouse, to your colleagues, find a way to leave everybody's dignity intact. Because if you don't do that, the next time you're coming to talk to people, people will not listen to you. Meanwhile, you have a lot of things to share. Oh, hey sis, thank you so much. I really appreciate that you are in the bushes and you are still stopping by to show your support and love. Thank you so much. I greatly appreciate you, and you keep up, because that is why we came out here, to be in the bushes and to find things that will make us grow. So, right on. So, when you have a conversation that leaves everybody's dignity intact, you are telling the person that you respect them, and you are showing your respect. And when people know that they are respected and that they are valued, they give their best. So, what are we striving to bring out the best in us and bring out the best in other people? And how can we do that? We can do that by asking empowering questions in every communication. Because in today's topic, we are talking about how to have a good conversation and transform your relationship. So, if you had a problem in your relationships or a challenge or something, communicate. We always hear that communication is everything in relationships, but also we have to find the manner of communicating effectively, because also when we don't communicate effectively, we can even spoil things further. And that is why experts say avoid asking why questions. Why did you do this? Why did it not happen this way? Why was it not the way I wanted? Because why questions are like we are asking for proof. And then the person puts themselves in like a judge and accused. And when you have that situation, I feel like I'm accused and that you are judging me. It's difficult to bring out the best in me and to even bring a solution that is workable for all of us. Because in every communication, we want a solution. We want to come out and grow together. We want to come out successful. And that is why we have to be intentional in the way we communicate. And because when, like they say, you cannot plant yams and go and harvest cassava. So you putting in what you want to get out. And that is where they say you have to be intentional. And being intentional is one of it. The second part is using the right communication skill set. And that is where experts say avoid asking why questions that will require the person to prove, or sometimes when you ask why did you already block the dialogue, because either the person thinks that if I really answer you the way you really deserve, this conversation will stop. Meanwhile, you want a conversation that will transform your relationship for the better. And that is why the open and empowering questions help you to facilitate dialogue. And what did we say? Or experts say that the empowering questions are, they said, one, ask in every problem, ask your the person with whom you in the relationship, either your spouse, your family member, your child, your colleagues, ask them, this we have a problem, what is it that I can do to move us out of this situation? That means you are taking responsibility for your own part of the failure, which means you are not blaming everyone else for the failure. You are acknowledging that you also contributed to it. Because most often, when a problem happens, we tend, when I say we, most of the time, like in couples, for example, we, the women, we always tend blame to blame our partners, or we blame every other person. We don't take our responsibility. For example, when I don't know if I'm a very good example, but when I failed in my second marriage, I had to take stock of my own contribution. I really had to take time to ask myself, what part did I play to make this not to work? So it's not really easy to take that responsibility and find the part that you played to spoil things, but it's very necessary, because when you acknowledge that you are a human being who can make mistakes, but who can also learn from your mistakes and grow, life becomes really much easier for you. So I had to also ask myself, what could I have done to move the situation forward? It was a little more challenging than me, because it was really more of something that I couldn't control. I couldn't control the fact that I couldn't have children, which was one of the main reasons why the marriages did not work. And then I didn't accept polygamy. So I had to make an auto evaluation of my own parts that I contributed to make it a failure. And once I took that responsibility to find, once I took that responsibility to find where I contributed to make it fail, it really helped me now to forgive myself, because it was not something that was in my sphere of control. So once I found, or I accepted that I was also part of the problem, I could now easily accept my part of it, and then find a way to move forward. And that is how I saw that I had to forgive myself, pick up myself, and keep moving. Hi, Charlotte, you are so welcome. I'm blessed to have you on this live stream. Today we are talking It's a part two of how to improve your communication skills. And today we are talking especially how to have a good conversation and transform your relationships. Because I thought that communication is so central in everything we do, and that we cannot talk about improving your communication skills in general without having a separate live stream to talk specifically on how to use communication to transform your relationships. Because we are we live in relationships, either with our families, with our spouses, with our colleagues. We have relationships everywhere, and we have the responsibility to build our communication skills in such a way that we will communicate effectively. One, it will help us add, really optimize the value that we add, and two, it will help bring out the value in the other people we interact with. Because in every conversation, when you leave people with their dignity intact, because you approach the communication from a point of view of a dialogue by asking empowering questions instead of why questions that always sound like you are accusing the person and that they need to justify, which which sometimes really makes the situation worse. And so we are really saying we have to be intentional. We have to learn how to communicate in such a way that we leave everybody's dignity intact, and then we solve a problem. So we gain two times. We leave people's dignity intact, we leave our own dignity intact, and then we solve the problem, because we are in a communication to grow or to come out from a problem or to find a solution. And when you're finding a solution, you are looking for what is workable. You always find the plan that will work best for everybody, not only for you. And so we have the reminder that communication is a dialogue. Good communication is a dialogue between the person who is speaking and the person who is listening. And you are in a conversation, because it's not like you are preaching like in church where they will preach the gospel and you are there listening. No, in a conversation, in any relationship, it is a dialogue of give and take. It is a dialogue of mutual. You have to mutually contribute. You have to mutually contribute, and you have to contribute nice things. Remember in the first part when we said the first skill that you need in communication is have something nice to say. Find something good to say. And so, no, it's okay. I'm really so blessed that you're even here, and I really appreciate I appreciate your support and encouragement. Thank you so much, my sister. You keep right on. We need that work to be able to really have that harmony that we are looking for. So communication skills, we can learn them. We can learn them like we learn how to cook, we learn how to bike. I'm learning a lot of recipes from Blind Guy, his wife. They have an amazing channel where they have lots of recipes, and then they share lots of marketing tips, and they have some amazing guests. Their link is below this, the description, in the description in this video. Did you get your cuttings? Well, tell us about it. We are in this communication together and we want to know everything. So we were saying that if you find ways of doing your dialogue in such a way that it is empowering, you will always get the best of everybody. In every dialogue, you will always get the best. Because why? Because you are approaching the communication from the point of view of a dialogue where you value everybody's contribution and where you want to find a workable solution for everybody. You are not in a dictatorship, or you are not in a dictatorship, or you are not, it's not like when you go to church, that is something different, because the preacher is preaching, and or the priest or the pastor is preaching. That is something else. But in a conversation, in a partnership, you are looking for a win-win situation. You are looking for a way of keeping everybody's dignity intact. You start by keeping your own dignity intact, you keep the other person's dignity intact, and then both of you can bring the best in both of you. And that is why experts have proposed a lot of empowering, what they call empowering questions. And for them, empowering questions mean questions that facilitate dialogue. And I can't stop repeating them. What are some of the empowering questions that I thought could be useful in this live stream today? If you have a problem with a partner, be they a colleague, be they a spouse, be they your children, be they your friends, when you have a problem and you want to engage a conversation that will transform your relationship, that will mend your relationship, use these three questions. One, what is it that I can do to move us from this situation? When you ask that question, it means you are telling the other person that I know that I also contributed to this problem, and I am willing for us to find a solution. And then the second question, where can we focus to help us avoid being in this situation again? You are acknowledging that it is a we solution. And so you are acknowledging or telling the other person that I am willing to open up, and then I'm willing for us to find a workable solution. Hi, sis, you're so welcome, Lasius. It's a busy Whitey Street, and we are so busy. I'm really appreciative of you taking time and just finishing your own live stream and jumping up here. I greatly appreciate your support and encouragement. Thank you very much for coming. So we are talking about the three empowering questions that experts recommend to help us facilitate communication, to help us facilitate dialogue in any communication where we want to mend. And that the last question is, what lesson would you like us to get from this experience? And when we say dialogue and you ask these questions, and then you really ask, what lesson would you like us to learn from this experience? It means you are prepared to not let this situation happen again. And that is what makes it more beautiful, because it is a we solution oriented dialogue. So the other person keeps their dignity, you keep your dignity, and both of you feel valued, because you know that everybody is bringing value and that everybody is working for the common good. And that is why experts say we should avoid why questions, especially in couples. When you have problems, don't ask, why did you do that? Why did it not happen this way? Because when you ask why questions, you are asking like for proof. And then you're putting the other person in the accuser, in the place of the accuser, and then you are the judge. And sometimes, really, they say you don't want to know the answer to these why questions. And that is why it is so important for us to use those empowering questions, because we don't want to hear the answers. Why did you do this? Why did it not happen this way? Why is it like this? Why me and why not me? Avoid why questions in relationships, because they are asking like for proof, or they are putting the other person in the accuser bench, and like you are the judge, and that brings, it makes the distance grow wider between you. So if you are initiating a communication or a conversation to mend your relationship, and you start with the questions, why did you do this? Why didn't it happen this way? Why didn't it happen that way? You are making room for a bigger gap between you, because one, the person might just decide not to answer your why because they really don't want to hurt you with the answer. And then two, they just decide to be quiet or tell you the answer the way it is. So one, they decide to be quiet because they don't want to hurt you, and two, they tell you the answer and you are really hurt. And then finally, both of you end up in a worse situation than what you set out to be. Yes, ma'am, take two to make it work. Absolutely. It takes two to make it work, and you always value somebody's opinion. Even if, because we are talking about a relationship, and most often relationships are people we are supposed to stay with for a long time. It's not like a casual somebody that you just met. Relationship means they are family members, they are our spouse, they are colleagues with whom we will meet every day to work. You have to find ways to communicate better, effectively, and make things work. Not because you are afraid of any person, but just because you are a builder, you are a confidence builder, and you want things to work. Because you want that every time you pass somewhere, things should work. And like they say, when you communicate with these empowering questions, what did Odom say? Yes, I had to learn to listen more and put myself in the other person's place. Absolutely, Odom. We, in the first part of this series, we talked about listening a lot. And if you want, for those of you watching the replay or those who did not watch the first part, you really need to watch it, because Laquita had some very mind-blowing tips that will help you. And we also discussed real golden nuggets on what are the skill sets that you can use during your communication to be an effective communicator. So you can watch that video, and you will see the prime of place that listening has, because most often that is the part that people don't take into consideration, like if an integral part of a conversation. Active listening is not just listening while you're at your phone, and then when the person ends you say, oh, what were you saying? No, it's active listening. Yeah, I have the quitter coming up again. This is such a blessing. Thank you so much. I am always like, when you are there, I know that things are going to happen. I was just telling those who are watching the replay, or those who did not watch part one of this conversation on how to improve your communication skills, to watch them. You have the description. I left the video link in the description below. Laquita gave us some mind-blowing tips, and today again, I know she's going to go another level. So you're welcome, my beautiful sister. How is it? Thank you for finishing your own life and coming here. It's a very busy street, you too.
Yes, no, thank you for having me. This is just wonderful. I am in the other room cooking and things, and I said, "Oh, I got a few things prepared. Let me come pop in for a few moments and sneak in." And I'm not sure how long you live stream, so I won't be long, but I really
I still
appreciate.
have 1 hour.
Oh, okay, thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity for you that you're giving us to understand like the dialogue is so important. So, I had a quick story. I always have these stories. And you when you say those why questions, like don't ask because you might not like the answer. Some of us out here, we shoot from the hip, whatever you ask, we're going to give it to you. We're going to so you don't always want to you don't want to come with those questions. A good dialogue, like you're saying, it really involves both people looking at, okay, what are all the different parts of this situation, you know? But I also really like the solution part because rather than just pointing out the problems or the problems, one thing that I do when me and Corey are talking, I always say, well, um, what's the point? What's the point? What are we trying to do? Where are we getting to? You know what I mean? So this way we can kind of keep the focus on, all right, yeah, let's do that. So let's say we're on our way. This happens to us, has happened to us a lot. So it continues to. We're on our way to a performance. And we have to figure out before we get to the performance, okay, what's the point? Are we going to a festival? Are we going to a university? Are we speaking to adults? Are we speaking to families? How are we? So we know that our message is this, but what's the point? Like, how do we get there? What are we going to do? So we've had this so many times where what we don't do is look at the audience and say, um, why don't they like us? We one time, this is what we learned with younger children, they're honest. So we would always, in our performance, we know the point. So we know how we're going to go through it. So we always would say, like, we might do a story and then we do the lesson or the music or something interactive. We know that we're going to do another story, but we've asked the children and we stopped because they started giving us the truth. Who wants to listen to another story? Or we say something like, are you ready for another story? And they would always say no. And we're like, oh no, wait a minute. So, like you said, you have to find a way to talk to the other person or people, but in our case, so that they know, like you can work together so that you both can come to a good solution. Because we knew that we wanted to tell a story so that they could learn a lesson or they could enjoy it or so that they could participate. They didn't know why we were telling a story, but they knew they were enjoying the part of the program where we were. So, so that's where, like I said, be solution oriented. What's your goal? What's the point? And that's one thing that we do, a lot in our relationship and professional stuff. Ask certain questions and ask them a certain way. I like that you said that.
Absolutely. It's so important because if you are going into a conversation, it's trying to transform and mend something. It's not like you're going to accuse the person, because when you go with that perspective, you're really going to end up in a bigger argument, or with a wider gap. And
Yes,
so bringing the solution orientation is such an important part. And most of the time, people don't people forget that communication is a dialogue, especially with couples. It's like, I'm angry, I have to get this out, and then it has to be my way. You are just, because you are going to be together forever,
forever. That's the
hopefully.
goal. That's the hope.
That's why I say hopefully. And so you have to find a way to be together in harmony. And communication really plays a vital role to
Hmm.
either make that harmony more agreeable or to really spoil it.
Really spoil it.
Meanwhile, you just need little, put in that little, out of, so move the pride out of it, because you want to build.
Yes.
Anything that you're building, it's not single-handed. Like they tell us in my village, one hand cannot tie a bundle. You need your two hands.
Yes.
And so you have to put them to work together. And with just the empowering questions, you save yourself so much. And I started. I don't know if you heard this quote. Let me read the quote again that really inspired me. They say a little communication goes such a long way. If you are busy, say it. If you are upset, express it. If you are running late, let people know. And if you don't want to do something, be straightforward. If you are unsure, ask.
Mm.
I
You
found
know,
this.
yes,
What do you
yes.
think about this quote?
You know, I did hear the quote, and so thank you for repeating it because I've heard it today when you said it several times. And what I like about this is that it's giving that honesty and that clarity. You know, when you say if you're going to be late, let people know. One thing that I do is I stopped giving excuses and reasons, and that's just part of the communication because number one, if you're late, you're already late. So apologize, just apologize that I'm sorry, I'm going to be late. But this way they know that, okay, you're going to be late. And you're not saying a lot of stuff like, oh, I'm going to be late. This was the old me, right? Because I'm that person that when I'm working a job, I'm not there early. I'm getting there at the time. If I'm supposed to work from 11 to 7, I'm getting there at 11 or 11:05 or 11:09. But the point is, instead of saying, "Oh, I got caught in traffic, I'll be late." "Oh, I had to run an errand. Oh, I had to drop off. Oh, I had car trouble." Nope. A little goes a long way. And I find that the asking for grace, like or apologizing, is what I mean by asking for grace. Extending that, not asking for grace, but extending your apology first because you know that you shouldn't be late, or you know that you're wrong, or you know that whatever. So go ahead and offer that in the little bit that you're going to say. I'm sorry, I'm going to be late. I'll be there in at this time. Just be specific because a little dialogue, you've now reassured the other side what's going on. And it's the same thing, with most other things in these relationships. But another thing I wanted to say about the quote is that when I started watching you today, I came in late. So this my trick to catch up is I just scroll back because you can rewind during a live stream. I just rewind and I watch it in double time until I get to the place where they are. you know. So I was like, oh, this is good. So it doesn't get old either. Like to hear that quote, I think I've heard it now 3 times. You read it, and I was like, oh, this is good. Every time I hear it differently. Same words, I hear it, I understand it better. So it does not hurt to repeat things in communication. That's the reason why I wanted to mention hearing it.
You are my girl. This is so important because I keep repeating it because sometimes, not sometimes, every time when we hear something, the more times we hear, the more we understand it.
Yes.
And we have always said repetition is the father, the mother, the repetition is core to learning.
Mm,
And I'm also like interested for people to take home the idea of leaving everybody's dignity intact.
mm. That you said that earlier. Um, and that's, oh goodness, that's huge because I don't always leave everybody's dignity intact. I'll be honest. It's not it's not one
You
of
are not alone.
it does not come easy because at the point when you're like, okay, we've gone through this situation several times, then at this point I'm like, okay, let me just say whatever I'm going to say. And I'll give you an example, right? A quick story on not leaving everyone's dignity intact, saying things when okay, I could have still calmed down and said it this way, but okay. Corey and I, we're together a lot because we work together. And of course he does his thing, I do my thing. But whenever we are walking, um, he uses his walking stick since he can't see, and he moves it side to side, and people think because you're blind that stick catches everything, right? And even though he's been blind over 25 years, I still think like, man, use the stick, like use the stick, it's going to help you, right? And I say, I'm like, Corey, use the stick. And so before, he used to be more patient, like, well, I'm using it, but, and he would give a longer explanation. Now he's like, the stick doesn't catch everything, like he just tells me quick, like, and so he tells me the stick doesn't catch everything, you need to slow down, or you need to, and then now he's telling me, like, or let me know if we're going to turn, or let me know if whatever. So then it makes me step back and say, like, oh, of course I want to be upset, but how can I really, when we've been through this too many times, we walk together a lot. I know by now the stick doesn't, that he's using the stick, how else is he moving around? But I'm still like, oh, just use the stick. So yeah, you want to leave everybody's dignity intact, and of course at the end my feelings are hurt, but how can they really be?
And that is where the power of thank you and I am sorry,
Mm,
excuse me, that is where the power of excuse me, I am sorry, thank you, that completes it, because we are not perfect. Nobody is, you can't even be perfect 24 on 7. Perfection, it really does not exist. It's only God who is perfect. But
right.
we are trying to be as the best we can. And that is why all of these communication techniques they come in. You can leave somebody's dignity by just really telling them you're sorry, and really sincerely you're sorry, and thank you, excuse me. Those are some of the ways that you can catch up with leaving people's dignity. But
Mm-hmm.
when I say leaving people's dignity, sometimes it's not, sometimes you get so angry that you can't really control what you say, and you say so many hurtful things. And that is why, even if you have said hurtful things, at the end of the day, when everybody is calm, you come back to the conversation.
Right.
You
Right.
come back to the conversation. So it's not like you just want 1 minute and sit there. It's building each other.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we say it's intentional, because those are things you have to learn and practice until they become a lifestyle.
That practice part, oh my goodness. That's the difficult part, because you think you're practicing, but of course every situation is different, and so you think you're practicing, and then you realize, like, ooh, that wasn't a good practice, like, but you get better. Of course, practice always improves you, so yes.
And we can't even be so perfect every time, or we can't really say we are going to do. If not, we'll become uh, like robots, like mechanical, which is
Yeah.
also not good in relationships. You can't just be so straight like that. No, you can whine and twist and bend, but at the end of the day, you have a focus of growing together. And once you have that mindset of growing together and openness to learn and grow from everything you do,
Mm-hmm.
I know it's so challenging, because sometimes you like they say, you get up from the bad side of the bed, or from your bad side, and then you have a hectic day and you are not very patient.
Right.
But there's a way you come back, and you come around and, oh really, I was too harsh on him. I shouldn't have said that. I'm really sorry. And because most often the other person really does not need a lot from us in relationships. They just need us to understand
Mm-hmm.
and be willing to make it work, and
Yes.
be willing to be nice, because some people are really nasty, really, eh?
Mm-hmm. I will say that it's still, for some reason though, for people, it's, you kind of give what you've been given. So like you're saying, some people are like, I'm mean and evil. I always say that I'm mean and evil at heart, because just
You're not.
because, like, growing up I was like, oh, I was always the one, like, oh, let me fight my brothers and sisters or whatever. um but I was not necessarily given mean and evil. I don't know how they were so nice and sweet to me, right? Even when I would bother them and everything. But So that's how I learned. I was like, oh, I don't have to always, be picking at my sisters or brothers or whatever, or saying mean things or whatever. And so you start to give what you are given. So they would show me compassion, they would show me all these different loving ways of, okay, we'll manage you in a good way. And so that is the reason why you're saying, like, when you say you have to be nice, you have to work on that, you have to work on giving the goodness, because when you give that, you're going to get it back, and you don't know what you're pouring into other people. A lot of times you're actually helping them to be nicer, to be more compassionate, to be more concerned and loving and all of those things. So yes,
And that's the beauty of love.
it
They
never
say love
fails.
is patient, love is kind, love
Kind.
is understanding, and but you have to nurture it. You really have to nurture it. It's every every relationship have their challenges.
Mm,
We are not saying that relationships should be perfect or that people should be perfect, because
right.
otherwise we will be like robots and automated, and just like, we are saying that we can be intentional to make things better,
Yes.
agreeable, like more agreeable, and really just be nice.
Right.
Even if some people are so mean, there are some people who are so mean
Yeah.
that sometimes you really say they don't deserve it. Be nice to them anyway, because the fact that they are with you and you are a nice person, someday they might really start copying some of those nice attitudes and
Mm-hmm.
really grow.
Exactly. Exactly. Because yeah, whatever you're given, it is what you'll give back. And so, like you're saying, we have to give that to people so that they have it to give to others. Yes.
Yeah, I know some mean people. I can tell you. I can
Uh-oh.
tell you. I can tell you that I know so many mean people. But sometimes you just like, I want us to really talk about. Sometimes I used to think that for some mean people, just ignore them. Don't even
Mm-hmm.
say anything to them.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't solve the problem. you know, Being quiet does not solve the problem, because you need to tell people how you feel,
Right.
even if it's going to hurt, or they are not going to take it the way you want them to take it. It really is. I had to learn how to speak it, because I
Mm-hmm.
used to really just keep it and think that with time, when they say time heals, it's not really absolutely true. It's not 100% true. Time does not heal some
Right.
wounds. You have to you
Yeah.
have to take them for treatment. You
Mm.
have to say them, and
It's a lot more work. Yes.
hi Mercy, you're welcome. I'm glad that you're here, and for everybody in the chat, I'm really happy that you are here. Thank you so much for coming. I'm like this part about, especially in couples, there's a problem and then you don't talk about it, you keep it, and
Yeah.
then the next problem comes, you keep it, and then problems pile and pile until they get to a stage where you can no longer talk about them. The gap has grown so much.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I will say that I know we're talking about couples, like your personal relationships in here, where you're talking about communication. But I will say that the other thing that helps is overall all of your relationships. You have to kind of move through them all the same way, so that whether it's your work relationship, your relationship with your other family members, whether it's your parents, cousins, grandparents, your children,
Your
you really
colleagues,
say that again.
your colleagues in the
Exactly.
workplace.
Yes, exactly. Especially the colleagues, because you spend so much time with the colleagues that it's the same as any other relationship. You're going to see these people, you have to work with them. And so this is where you want to keep a dialogue going. Like you're saying, you never want to just give the order or be given an order, So I will say for me, working in a lot of different environments, a lot of our environments are different, especially now we're in virtual spaces. The tips that you're giving are really key for communication. So that's another one I was thinking of, not just in your personal relationship, but especially in this virtual space where we don't have the full 3D effect of being in person with someone and seeing their body language. Like, you don't know right now, and I don't know about you either, if my feet are shifting or your feet are shifting, showing restlessness.
Yeah.
When you're in person with someone, you can kind of see, okay, they're ready to move on to something else. They're ready to either come to a solution, finish this up, or maybe they want to talk more about it. We can see that in the body language when we're communicating in 3D in person. But the tips that you're giving us, it's like, okay, you can use as much of these in all situations, no matter what. All of these tips are here for us, and we just have to practice them.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. Because we are saying that the tips are for you to have a good conversation and transform your relationships.
Mm,
And I'm really always so fascinated by when people say communication is key, and then they really don't know, or they don't really understand how much a key is communication.
mm-hmm.
And that is why we don't have to stop learning.
Right,
Like
right,
you rightly mentioned, now we live mostly in the virtual space. It doesn't change the fact that we have to be effective communicators.
right.
And even now more than ever, because sometimes you like, I remember the example you brought about Odinyawa, the way she handled somebody in the chat.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
People will say things and stuff, and if you don't have that skill to manage it, you can really just spoil your whole chat, spoil your
Yes.
whole live stream, or spoil everything that you've been saying. And that's
Mm-hmm.
why it's intentional. We have to learn it, because it's good that it's something that we can learn.
Right.
And it's something that we have to work on every day, because we meet so many different kinds of people every day. And that's why when I saw these empowering questions that promote dialogue, I was like, really, this is so important, because you notice that these questions require that you evict your ego.
Yeah.
You have to be in a place of humility and a
Mm-hmm.
place of willingness to discuss, to find a solution. And you put the person in a state of connectedness, thought, and reflection. So it's not like you dictating, or you're just telling that you don't know anything, I have to tell you everything. You have, that's the environment that you have built is
Mm-hmm.
going to determine the outcome that you will get.
Yes. Yes, because if we're focusing, if we're feeding our own ego, then we can't really consider what everyone else wants. We can't be selfish in that way where we're just considering ourselves. Yes, we definitely have to balance it. I really like that when I go, and this is another situation of looking at all the relationships. I really like it that when I go to the grocery store, something as simple as this, right? In the produce section, I know that they are adding to that section. I know that they're adding the let's just say the lettuce or the cabbages or what have you. So if I'm trying to get parsnips or rutabagas and they're over in that section, the gentleman or the lady, whoever's refilling and stocking, they always give the consideration to the customer. They always say, "Oh, let me move so you can shop." And I'm like, "Oh no, well you're doing your job. Like we can't get the food if you make a selection if you aren't refilling it." But I really like that consideration. They're looking at it from the perspective of, yes, I need to get these things onto the shelves. However, if I'm just focused on me, stocking will never sell the food. so so it's all those little simple things that we don't even think about, that those people are solution oriented. They are giving and when you say empowering questions, I like the empowering part, because empowering means you're helping someone else. You're automatically considering someone else first. They're empowering me to get my shopping done. you know but yes, absolutely.
And that's why it's exactly why I thought that there should be a second part of this live stream to learn how to improve your communication skills and focus really on how to communicate to transform your relationships, because relationships, we are social beings.
Yes.
You don't exist in isolation, and so it's not something that we need it every day, every time. If you are in the house, you have your family, you have your spouse, you have the children. When you are at work, you have your colleagues. When you even go out, even in the park, you also meet other users and there. And so to be in that harmony and to make everybody get the best of every situation, that is why we have to work intentionally on our communication skills.
Hmm. Intentionally. Repeat. Everybody in
Absolutely.
the chat, repeat intentionally.
It's
Make
in
it your
it's
business.
intent. Absolutely. Because we are in the business of building.
Hmm.
And if you can't build without getting intentional action. You just can't put out actions at random and expect to have good results.
Yes.
So it's intentional and it's not difficult. It's just a matter of you being willing to be a good person and to
Hmm.
make and to build and to grow together, not only you, but growing together. And
Hmm.
we need each other. You can't be, if I was sitting here in my live stream alone, it doesn't make sense. We are sharing, we are communicating, we are really like, look at all the ideas that we are bringing and blending them and helping each other, because
Yes,
I am learning, and every one of us is learning. Every time you are in a communication, you learn something new.
absolutely.
You learn,
Absolutely.
yeah, you learn something new. And so when I think about communication and how most of the time we just say it without really knowing how really capital it is, how central it is, and what we really need to work on, and that we really need to work on it, we really need to be intentional. We really also need to be willing, and especially talking, you have to really find something good to say. Even if the person has hurt you, even if the thing is as bad as what, find a good way to say it.
Mm. That's where the practice comes in, though, because
Absolutely.
like you're saying, you've been married, and of course, a lot of people, they've been married, and the people who have not been married, there's either way. You've dated, you know what I mean. You've been in relationships. You don't have to have been married to know that. Okay, I know how to talk to people in a good way. You know what I mean? You grew up, so you've heard people talk good, you've heard people talk bad. So, like you're saying, we're talking about relationships here right now, the marriage, but we can always find a good way to say it. And the old saying, if you can't say something good, I used to, oh my goodness, I used to not like this saying as a child. If you can't find something nice to say, don't say nothing, don't say anything at all. And I used to always think, but I know I want to say this. I want to and that's where I say like the mean and evil in me, because I used to think, no, I'm going to say it. I want to say it anyways. But, they're like, nope. If you can't find something nice to say, don't say anything at all.
No, that sometimes you all of those sayings were for a particular situation. Meanwhile, we are saying today that always communicate what you want. Talk. Don't think that people will infer or they will guess,
Right.
because sometimes they will not even guess what you are thinking, and you are there boiling and really hurting.
Mm-hmm.
Tell them,
Right.
you did this and it really hurts me.
Mm-hmm.
And then you tell them, when you say, because there's a way you tell it that will open for dialogue or not. The
Hmm.
tone and the vocabulary that you use.
Right. 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 Because the way you say it, you can say something that's not so good, but if the tone that you use it's a loving tone, um, and it's a compassionate tone, then the person gets the message that you're not just reprimanding them or putting them down, but you're giving them a hard truth. Hey, y'all got to take this thing. I've had plenty of those in my day where, say, like I have my hair braided right now, right? And usually, I used to wear braids a lot, and then I would also just wear different things. And but when we started our live stream, I had it natural where it was just kind of curly, and I had a puff here and there. And every time I did something different with it, I got the hard truth of people like it better, not in its natural state, right? They like it better. It was a hard truth. And I say a hard truth because nowadays everybody's like, oh, do you? You got to live in your truth. And that's true. I can. And I just said, okay, well, let me just figure out a way to live in the way that I like it, and the way that everybody's letting me know this is the way we like it too. And even in person, that's always been the case as well. So that's not a relationship one, but what I'm saying is it's a hard truth when you're thinking, darn, I really like that.
No, when I like what you say, because sometimes, like I always say, they say these things in the context. When they say "do you," it's not like you have to to remain in some antiquity, like in some ancient.
Right, right.
Do you is just in the context of don't imitate other people or don't try to copy and paste their
Mm,
lifestyle or the things that they do. Do
yes.
you means you just bring out the authenticity in you, use your
Hmm.
uniqueness, enhance it, embrace it.
Yep.
Because when they say do you, is just because some people think that if they don't do things in a certain way, others will not validate them. But
Right.
when they say do you, it means you have to first validate yourself. So
Yeah.
it's not so that's why I say those things are said in context. And so we are saying you even if you want to people if even if you want to do your hair the way people will appreciate it, first appreciate it yourself. When you finish doing your hair, look in
Yes.
the mirror and say, I like this. I love the way I am. And
Ex-
so the love that the people are giving you in the chat
hmm.
is a bonus
Hmm.
because you first love it.
Yes. Yes. That makes so much sense because like you're saying, hey, do you, but also in context, make sure that you love you first, and then what you're giving to others is something that you can be proud of. So, look, do you with your language, because that's what I say. Okay, when I'm approaching other people, let me smile, let me say please, let me use all the necessary manners and all of those good things, because I like talking like that, but I like those things said to me. So, oh, let me also give those things to other people, and I usually get it back. It works. And if that's the way it works with other ways, I prefer to wear black. And, so I said, oh, okay, well, let me just find something that's a little stylish, a little, it's not just a black t shirt or whatever. Let me do me. And then it's so funny, like the same old black stuff that I always wear, I'll get compliments on, because I might wear black with sparkles. Like if I have a scarf, it has the sparkles in it or what have you. And then I love it first. The other people love it as well. I'm doing me and they love it. Yes.
Absolutely. Be your own best friend, be your own hero. Every
Mm,
other thing is a bonus.
absolutely.
Because you can't even think of pleasing everyone. Whatever you wear your hairstyle, there are some people who are going to love it, some people will like it, some people will really not even want to see it. But do you love it?
Right. Right.
Absolutely.
That's it.
That's the foundation. Do I love the way I see myself? Do I love the hair I am wearing today? I love me some short hair. It, I don't take time to I don't take time to do my hair and stuff. Well, for me, practically now, it's just the best thing for me to do because I I I went to mission schools where
Mhm.
we wore short hair. So wearing short hair for us is like it's really like I've worn short hair more in my life than I've even worn long hair. So it's really very good for me and I don't find any problem. But if
Right.
people want to braid their hair, if they are comfortable with it, because I am comfortable with my short hair,
Mhm.
it doesn't take me time to do it. And in fact, for this time, I love the short hair.
Right.
And so
Right.
I am doing me with my short hair now, and I am comfortable with it. So when you say, do you, are you comfortable with it? Do you like it? Do you love
Mhm.
yourself the way you are?
Exactly.
You are not
This is
trying to please everyone and then displease yourself.
right, right. Work, and and like you're saying, work on it so that no matter what, you are your best self. You're not just servicing your ego, you're also pleasing, everyone around. You're considerate. I'll say that you're considerate no matter what you're doing to do you. Make sure you're considerate the whole time.
No,
Well,
absolutely. Absolutely.
this has been wonderful. I have to go finish up with the food. I think it's marinated long enough. I was cooking. This is not like cooking right now. I'm making like a slaw, and I
Okay.
will cut the onions and let them sit in the lemon juice so they're not so strong
Okay.
before I put it with the oil and the salt, sugar, and stuff, and the red cabbage and the carrots, whatever. So I was like, oh, this is good. I can sneak in while the onions are marinating a little
You
bit.
you always have some delicious menus and recipes. I really always love just looking at them and they are so healthy.
Oh, yes, thank you. I'm always learning. I'm always learning. That's one of my favorite things. Food is one of my favorite things. And so I'm always learning like the science of it, the flavors, textures, just learning different things and not just learning, but acting on them, because action makes the difference. So yeah, I'm always experimenting and learning. I like the food part because no matter what, you get to enjoy the food. So hey.
And you are sure of what you are eating.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
can you remember how many people were stuck when there was lockdown because they don't know how to cook and they
I
didn't know how
know.
to what to eat?
I don't know how they made it. It's like, what in the world? Oh goodness, how are you surviving? And because you can only eat out but so much, like it's too expensive at some point. Or you end up eating just, the worst foods because the worst ones are the cheapest. And so yeah, I like to explore. So I'm like, I want all the variety.
Continue cooking your own food. They are more yummy, and then you are sure of what you are eating. They are
Absolutely
healthy,
sure.
and you have your well being. Thank you always for everything. And my love to Corey and the kids. It is always a pleasure to have you. And I thank you for your love, for your support, for your encouragement, and for all you do for your service.
Yes, no, thank you so much as well. It's been a pleasure being here again and enjoy the rest of your stream. I'm going to head into the kitchen. Thank you for having me and letting me grace the panel. So I love you as well.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Guys, connect with Blind Guy, his wife. Their link is in the description.
Oh, yes, thank you for that as well. Thank you. I meant to say thank you because I heard you saying that. So thank you for adding that. I appreciate it.
No, it's there. They need to really. I don't. I'm in the business of collecting good people, and I'm also in the business of sharing the good things that I have, so that everybody too can benefit from them. So
We're in
you're
the same
always
business.
welcome.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. We're in a similar business, so I like that. Take care.
Thank
Thank you
you.
as well.
Okay, you too.
All right.
So, guys, this is really, it's always a pleasure to have Laquita. She is a powerhouse of effective communication. She and her husband, you need to connect with them because you will learn so much from them. They really practice what we have been talking about. and they are a very good example of people who communicate effectively, and they always share their experiences. So it's always a pleasure to have them. And it's a pleasure to have all of you in the chat. I am always so grateful for your love, for your support, for your encouragement, because this cannot be done alone. And so we'll come back to, I'll give you a brief, uh, I'll brief you again on what today's topic was. We said that in today was how to improve your communication skills, and this is part two. We had part one on Monday where we talked about how to improve your communication skills in general, and we gave some very golden nuggets like you having something good to say, you practicing your listening, and such golden nuggets that you need to watch the video. The description is below the I have the link in the description below this video. And so today, since communication is such an integral part of relationships, I decided to do an exclusive live stream on how to have a good communication and transform your relationship. I had to bring one part of the communication skill sets, particularly for relationships, because we are social beings. Oh, you're so welcome. And it's always a pleasure sharing with you, because you always deliver the diamonds, and people need to learn these things and also grow. And so we were saying that we are social beings. So we live, social beings mean we live in the community. We live with our families, with our spouses, with our children, with our colleagues. Even when we go out to the supermarket, when we go out in the park, every time you step your leg out, you're going to meet people. And you have to build your communication skills in such a way that you are, people see you like an agreeable person, you are a nice person, not because you want to impact, not because you want to impress them, you just want to be a nice person because it is much easier to be a nice person. And to summarize this conversation that we are having today, somebody summarized it so much in a quote, and I would like to read that quote to you again. And they said, "A little communication goes such a long way. If you are busy, say it. If you are upset, express it. If you are running late, let people know. If you don't want to do something, be straightforward. If you are unsure, ask." It's so simple, but it's so important. And that's why we are talking today about the importance of communication in relationships, because communication is the doorway to everything, to every relationship. And every relationship, when we communicate, is a transaction. And when we are doing a transaction, we want to leave it in a win-win state so that the other person that we are talking with should not feel cheated or should not feel disrespected. And that is why we are insisting on communication being a dialogue, because in a relationship or in every communication, it is a dialogue, because there is the person who is talking and there is the person who is listening. And so we want to leave everybody with their dignity intact. You who is talking and the person who is listening. And your focus in every communication is solution oriented, especially when you are trying to mend a relationship. And so today I shared some of the findings that I got when I was preparing this topic, and what the experts propose as empowering questions. And what they call empowering questions are questions that facilitate dialogue. Because they said If you are committed to a relationship, you have to communicate at all costs. But we need to be deliberate and ask empowering questions. And they shared a lot of empowering questions, but I particularly identified three. And the first one was, what is it that I can do to move us from out of this situation? We are talking about mending in relationships, which means you are taking responsibility of your own contribution to the failure, and you want to find a solution together because you know it's a teamwork. And that is why you are asking an empowering question that will facilitate dialogue. Because when you ask the person, what is it that I can do to improve the situation? You are telling them that I know that I also contributed. I am willing for us to look for a solution. You tell me from your own perspective, what is it that I could have done or that I didn't do to bring us to this situation where we need mending? And then the second question is, where can we focus to help us to avoid ever being here again? Because here you want to find a permanent solution, or you want to find a solution that is workable for two of you. And that is why you are asking for what we can focus on. Because, like they say, you when you are alone, it's you, but two people's opinions can help you bring a richer and more successful solution. So it's not only what you know, but what the other person knows, and what you're focusing, what you identify as your focal point, because you are building a relationship where you are in it together, be it in your office or you went to the supermarket or outside. If you are using the same space, it means you have to find a way of making the space an enabling environment for everyone involved. And so the third empowering question was, what lesson would you like for us to get from this experience? So you notice, absolutely, work on the solution together since two heads are better than one. Absolutely. Because the more opinions you get, the better you can find a workable and sustainable solution, because it's not based only on what you know, but what another point of view is. And so, one of the things that really impacted me and that I first noticed about these questions, which they call empowering questions, was the fact that the questions require you to evict your ego. It's not only about me, me, me. And they come from a place of humility and a willingness to discuss and find a solution in a state of connectedness, thought, and reflection, which means you are not just like joking about it. You really want a concrete solution. You are humble. Like they say, when you are humble, you learn a lot of things. When you stay on your high horse thinking that you are all knowing and that you are all right and everything else, you miss out on so many things. Humility is a really big virtue that can help you to learn a lot of things, to gain a lot of things, and the willingness to discuss. Discussion means it's a dialogue, it's a give and take. You are listening to the person, you are contributing, you are participating together. So it's a dialogue, it's not a monologue. You're not coming there to tell somebody to that this is what you think and this is what happened and this is how you want the solution. No, you want to discuss. You want a conversation that will transform your relationship and make it better. And that is why the experts say avoid questions that will disconnect the other party involved. And those are questions that start with, why did you do this? Why did it not happen this way? Because such questions, they say, are questions that are asking for proof. And the thing, the proof might not be what you want to hear, or rather, the proof might not be what will help you to rebuild. So sometimes the proof is not an answer that you want to hear. But also, when you ask why questions, you are putting the other person in the place of the accused, and to you want them to give proof, or you want them to explain why, or you don't open up for dialogue, and you are not open for discussion. Why did you do this? And then you think you will solve the problem. Be solution oriented. And so they say the best way to handle a relationship challenge is by communicating with empowering questions, and also have that conversation with yourself to know the part that you played, and to be willing to ask for forgiveness, or to ask for help, or to say something nice to the person, or to apologize, or to even find a way of improving. Because when you do that auto evaluation or at that introspection, you are looking for the lessons, because you want to grow and you want this relationship to succeed. And that is why it is so important to have that conversation with yourself, to take responsibility of the part that you played, so that that will help you to find the solution together. And remember, teamwork makes dream work, like they say. So when you are, like Blanga, his wife say, when you work on a solution together, two heads are always better than one. And so when we say communication is the bridge, communication is also, it can also be the distance. And that is why we need to build and improve our communication skills. It is something that we can learn. Nobody is born knowing everything. When you want to be in the business of growing and improving yourself, it means you are in the business of continuous learning. Like we always say, every new day is a new learning experience, because you don't even know what the new day is bringing. Keep an open mind to learn and use every good thing that the new day is bringing. When you keep an open mind, you can always learn very important things that will help you. Oh, okay, that's wonderful. I'll catch up when I finish my live stream, and I'm grateful that you came back. I appreciate your support. Appreciate the support of everybody in the chat, even those who are going to watch the replay. I always appreciate your love, your support, your encouragement, because we are building together. And like I said, we are social beings. You can't live in isolation. We always live in relationships, either with our family members, with our spouses, with our children, with our colleagues, with people we meet in the supermarket, or people we even meet in the park. Wherever we go, we meet people, and we have the responsibility to be nice people. Just make up your mind to be a nice person, so that every encounter you have with anybody, you leave them with their dignity intact. You always like to keep your own dignity, give it to the other person. And so the topic about communication is something that we can have so much to say, but the foundation is to build those skills, because Communication is the best skill set you can build to have a successful to have success either at the personal or the professional level. And all of this, you can learn them, you can practice them, and make them your lifestyle. It's not complicated, it's not difficult. You can practice them and make them a lifestyle. Like they say, practice makes perfect. So the things that we have discussed, if you don't practice them, learn them, just start using them bit by bit. As the more you use them, the more you would internalize them, and the more easy it will be for you to just be a good communicator, an efficient communicator, and a peace builder. And so if we are in the business of building ourselves, we have to go out of our way to learn how to build better. And there's no way to learn how to build better than to start by improving our communication skills, because that is the basic, that is the foundation for a successful life, personally and professionally. Thank you, everyone who has participated in this live stream. I want to thank you all who have stayed till the end. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. I always appreciate and celebrate you. I am proud of you, and I celebrate you every time. For those of you who are watching the replay, you are always welcome, because every time is learning time. Thank you all. I wish you a beautiful day and have a productive week.